Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Encounter. I'm Jeff Kellam, your host today from the Union Presbyterian Church in Endicott, where I serve as the retired guy, the parish associate. If there's a little bit of commotion in the studio this morning, it's because we have 6 geese laying, but one is a gander, so he's lying. But other than that, on the 6th day of Christmas, here we are, and on New Year's Eve at that. Now that I've dated the program, we can't possibly rerun it. We welcome you to a time when we're thinking about entering a new year with, I hope, we're going to enter it with hope, with healing, and with help. And that help can come from the Samaritan Counseling Center, and the executive director, Jill Lloyd, is our guest this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about what the Samaritan Counseling Center is all about, and then we'll talk about some ways that we should think about entering the new year as a fresh start. Okay. We know that when the calendar changes pages, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the stress and pressure of the holidays and all the buildup of emotion goes away because we've turned the page. Right. So that's going to carry over, and we'll look at some handles we can have as that happens. Okay. You've been at the Samaritan Counseling Center as the executive director since February.
Correct.
But you worked there previously as a therapist.
Yes, yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the counseling center.
Okay.
I happen to have in my very hands the mission statement, which is, I'd have to spit on my fingers to turn the page. So, do you know it by heart?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So at Samaritan, our mission is to empower the whole person through a spiritually sensitive approach, and that's through counseling, education, and consultation. And
you take folks who are from the community who are reaching out. They realize they have an issue, and they call you. It may not be for them; it may be for their children.
Sure, absolutely. We actually work with a lot of kiddos. And we made a move this year to be out in the community, and we're starting to do a program where we're able to be at schools. But we get a lot of parents that call in. Some of that is referral through maybe their primary care doctor. It could be through their church. It could just be concerned parents. And so we do a lot of work with kids and adolescents.
And you're not the only therapist there.
No.
So tell me a little bit about the folks who are working and serving at the Samaritan Center.
Okay. We have 11 therapists other than myself, and we're actually currently expanding because we just are renovating and bought a new space that's adjoined to our property. So we'll hopefully be up to 16 therapists in 2024, which is exciting. The need is there. If anyone has been looking and searching for mental health care in the past couple of years, since the onset of COVID, there's a large wait in a lot of the community for mental health services. So we're trying to meet that need of the community. But our therapists we work with the gambit. We've got therapists that specialize in little children and therapists that go work with older adults. And we have some therapists, we are very uniquely trained. I'd say about half of our therapists are trained in EMDR therapy, which is specific for trauma.
EMDR?
So, yes, eye movement and desensitization and reprocessing. Okay, so it's kind of a long name, but some people seek out specific therapy that's for trauma and having had traumatic experiences in their life. So we work with survivors of trauma.
Do you see a time at this time of year when you have more folks looking for appointments, or is it pretty stable through the whole calendar?
We do. So right now, we have a lot of people still calling in and filling out intakes to get on, I should say, the list, but we're actually getting pretty quick at moving people through, which is wonderful, and getting them connected. It is a time of year between the holidays and also with the longer amount of darkness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so when you said January and moving into that new year and turning the page, it's actually a time that's people are really highly seeking mental health services around that time of year.
Well, and we live in a place, I used to hear that Binghamton, New York had more cloudy days than almost any place in the country.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, even I myself will get up in the morning and see how gray it is and dingy, and it does kind of set the tone for the day, doesn't it?
Yes, and we kind of call it, we refer to it at Samaritan as the big dark when November hits and we start inching toward those longer periods of darkness. And you can see it in folks that struggle with depression and mood disorders. People with bipolar disorder really struggle with this time of year. So
because you have so many therapists not on call necessarily, but you're dealing with folks who have maybe just a little twinge of conscience they want to deal with, or there may be severe depression, but you're prepared to deal with all these different levels?
Sure. Yeah, and we offer also couples counseling and family counseling. Which is really nice. And I think, too, we're seeing that pick up as far as, and I think that actually picked up since the onset of COVID, too.
Wow.
Which was kind of interesting. People, as things shut down and we're spending more time within the family dynamic, you could kind of see some of those familial issues sort of rearing their head. So we've seen an increase in that service as well.
Right. I used to refer folks, especially when I was in pastoral ministry actively, when they were coming they'd come and want to get married. And so I would do premarital counseling. I said, this is a prerequisite. If you want me to do the wedding,
right.
it has to be a worship service. I don't care whether it's under an oak tree, by the river, or out in the field somewhere, or your backyard, your living room. We're going to do a Christian wedding. Otherwise, get a justice of the peace,
Right.
called me. But we also do premarital counseling. And my grandson is now engaged, is looking toward a spring wedding.
Aww.
And I said, and he asked me to do it, to do the wedding. And,
oh, that's special.
Oh, it is. And I said, but I ain't doing premarital counseling with my own family. So I would refer him to, if he were in the area, I'd refer him to Samaritan Center.
Sure, you could do that, absolutely.
Could he afford it?
So we actually, for couples counseling does not get covered under insurance, but we offer that. We offer reduced rates for counseling.
Yeah.
We try not to have it so that we turn anyone away. We really, really do. We also have started, and it's through donations, we started a client support fund. So if someone's facing financial hardships, we actually can pull from that fund to help people move through counseling until they're in maybe a better financial place.
I see that often in the advice columns in the newspapers. Remember newspapers?
Yeah.
There used to be these large things you would hold and read the news. But the advice columns would often say, seek counseling. And it sounds so easy. Well, sure, go seek counseling, but folks have to know how, where to look, and then can I afford it?
Right.
So medical insurance does cover certain kinds of counseling.
Sure. And we are seeing insurance rise to the occasion in some areas. And it's interesting, too, because the way that we're set up at Samaritan, each therapist has to be paneled with different insurances. So depending on the type of licensure you have, it depends on what counselors can take what type of insurance. But we're also fortunate that we have some counselors that are paneled very widely. So we try to accommodate that as well. But there's a lot of moving parts to that. But we try to just make sure that we can accommodate anyone's needs so that they're not feeling like it's too daunting to be able to connect to counseling.
Sure. So when folks are looking toward entering a new year with renewed hope, it's going to take more, for many people, more than just one appointment.
Oh, yeah.
So is there a cutoff for things like insurance? How? And what is the average number of times that someone would come to?
Right. Usually when we start off with a new client, we try to see them weekly. There are times that, depending if they have to meet a deductible or pay co-pays, if there's a financial, barrier there, we work with them. But we try to just initially to establish the therapeutic rapport and really see where they're at. And then we might move them to every other week if they feel stable and comfortable in doing that. But we can see people for a long length of time. Some of our therapists have worked with people for a long period of time, because when you're dealing with certain mental health disorders, if someone's coming in, depending on the acuity of need, a briefer intervention is not going to work out for them. They might need that long-term support, and we try to make sure we can offer that.
Right.
But some people might come for just a couple months, a few months, and want to do something more brief.
Yeah. What is your own background? You are a counselor, a therapist?
Yes. I graduated from the University at Buffalo with my MSW. I'm a licensed social worker, and I work predominantly, my caseload predominantly is adolescents. And I didn't know that I would love to work with kids so much. When I did my internship at Samaritan years ago, and then came back to work with them because I loved the agency so much. I just have a deep love for Samaritan. And they had a grant at the time for kiddos that lost a parent. And it was predominantly lost a parent, not necessarily through death, but could be through other means, separation, divorce, things like that, or kids that were in foster care. And I said, you know what, I could do that. And so I just threw my hat in the ring for it, and I just ended up really loving that population. So I work with kids mostly when I'm doing counseling.
And you are working, as you said, you now are working with schools.
Yes.
You can go into the school to do counseling on site.
Yeah, this is our first school year of doing that. We're working with Union Endicott High School, and we've had great success so far. We've only been there a few months, but we're there Wednesday afternoons. We offer support groups throughout lunches. So their lunch periods, kids can get their lunch and come sit in a group with us, and we have open support conversation, and the kids have been amazing with the topics they bring up, and they're really willing to sort of go below the surface and work on some stuff. And then we do individual therapy sessions at the school as well. We have an office there. So Wednesdays, and now we're moving into Fridays already, because the need is, there's a lot of kids that are really interested in it. So.
Our guest today is Jill Lloyd. She is the executive director of the Samaritan Counseling Center in Endwell. Used to be based at our church, at Union Presbyterian Church, and then moved to a new building, and now you've purchased the building next door.
Yes.
So there's some expansion.
Yes.
Tell us the address, and then we ought to talk about the website.
Sure, our address is 3001 East Main Street in Endwell. And then we bought the house behind us that was up for auction, so that will add 4 additional counselors and a group space. You can go to SamaritanCounseling.org and very easily see what our services are. There's wonderful bios on each of our therapists, so as we add new therapists, we can add descriptions of what each therapist, who they work with and what their specialty is. And there's also very conveniently a place that you can access our intake forms. So you can print them out, or you can call us, and we are very helpful. And if you need something mailed to you or information on how to get connected with us, we will help you through all of those steps. SamaritanCounseling.org. Counseling has 1 L. Yes. And I did go to the website, and I saw Yvonne Lucia is not a former guest, but in fact, I think the last time we talked to her, it was during COVID when I was doing programs on my back porch. Oh, yeah. So she had come out, and we were talking about some of the issues that come up for therapy. We've been talking about people who have issues that they want to work through. And you mentioned the grief group for young people. So grief and guilt are things that are difficult, especially for young people, but for everyone to work through. And they take time. Can you share a couple of stories when you've seen breakthroughs? I mean, in order to do this kind of work, you want to have success. So tell me about the good feelings that you get when things work out really well. I think, well, I guess in my experience with working with adolescents, especially adolescents who might not have the most secure home life, it's seeing them be proud of themselves. And I think a lot of turning the corner for kiddos, and I think for adults too, is when they finally realize that they can count on you, that, you're in their corner, they have you as a support. A lot of folks, depending what they've been through in life, there's a lot of fear of abandonment. They've been let down a lot, and they've probably found themselves feeling quite alone a lot of the time. So I think when you see someone that finally realizes, like, this person's going to be there for me regardless, it's almost like an unconditional rapport, like you are going to be there for that person no matter what they tell you. And I think especially when kids or young people realize that, because there's a lot of guilt and shame that goes along with some of the things that people have been through in life, I think that's when you really see them, just that ability to be proud of themselves. I can remember one kiddo that came in one day, and it was the first time they made the honor roll. And they said, I had to show you. And now it's not a physical report card. It's on the app that you go to for the school. So they're showing me on their phone.
Yeah.
And I said, are you going to show this at home? Are they going to be excited? And just the realization when they said, they don't really ask, but I really wanted to show you. Wow. And I thought, it just kind of pulls at your heartstrings a little bit but then to know that they have that safe place, like they come in, and it's not just us. They might talk to Melissa or Kelly at the front desk and tell them about what the great things they're doing right now at school, or if they made a team, so you can even hear that camaraderie from the time they walk in the front door.
Wow.
And throughout their visit with us.
Yeah. So helping the teenagers or youth, and then, of course, anything that you do to help them, I think, also helps the family circle.
Absolutely.
And the parents who are probably struggling with the coping skills it takes to raise a teenager or a young person.
Yes. And we're looking at, in our new space after the new year, being able to provide a family group. And we've talked to Union Endicott High School about doing it in their space in the administrative building. That's something we'd like to add as part of our in-community services. Right. Because you do have to look at the whole family. It's a system, and I think sometimes parents may not understand the best way to help their child. Mm-hmm. Or they might not even know. Sometimes I think kids come home, and as adults, especially, you look at inflation and politics and the world around us and what's going on, and I think sometimes we can be so caught up in adult issues that we forget that kids' stress is just as big as our stress. Yeah. They might not be dealing with the bills and the same things that we're dealing with, but what's going on in their world can be just as impactful and stressful for them. Sure.
Yeah, the anxiety that comes with just listening to the daily news, the worry about the environment, or politics, or world affairs, can be burdensome, to be sure. I want to switch to the idea that there has been a stigma attached to seeking help.
Yeah.
In the years that you've been a therapist, have you seen this idea of the stigma reduced, or is there still a sense that I don't want anybody to know I'm looking for help?
Right. I think that there is a reduction. I still think we have a lot of work to do. I think that we're seeing it in things like, even for adults, like workplaces, having a higher level of understanding, maybe that people need time off, that mental health is part of our overall holistic health. Mm-hmm. So we are seeing some differences in that. But I also do think, too, that there is still stigma. There is, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the need for education in our community. I think programs such as this is a great opportunity for people to see and understand a little bit better into that window. Right. But I think at the end of the day, we all know somebody within our family, within our workplace, our congregation, at school, that is struggling. Yeah. And I think sometimes it can be easier for people to maybe ignore it rather than know how to help. It's hard to know how to help and what the right thing might be, but the right thing is usually listening and just being there for someone.
Yeah. When someone said that something that was said to them cut so deeply they needed, what was it, some psychological stitches or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And so what they were saying was, I think, that when we have a physical problem, mm-hmm. we don't have any problem going to a doctor, or a nurse, a physician.
Right.
But when we have a mental health issue, then suddenly it's like, I don't want somebody to think I'm crazy.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think someone had said something too, a metaphor basically, that if I hurt myself, if I break my leg and I need crutches or a cast, people see it and I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
But going for mental health care, they felt like they're not willing to share that at work with what kind of appointment they're going to or what they're doing. And they said, I shouldn't be ashamed of that. I should be able, just like a cast or crutches, to show that I need assistance and support.
Sure.
And I hope we get to that place where people can feel more open about it, because the more we feel that we can let people know what our needs are, the more someone might identify and say, you know what, I have that need sometimes too.
Yeah. I want to remind folks that the website is SamaritanCounseling.org, and you'll find there the list of counselors and therapists, the mission statement, and some of the programs being offered by the Samaritan Counseling Center. Our guest is Jill Lloyd, the executive director. When you look at your own work, you're both administrator and therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see your administration and the grant writing that you do as part of the reward you get? Would it be as strong as it is when you've left a counseling session with a counselee?
Yeah, I think it can be, because we are a very close-knit group of people at Samaritan as far as our staff. And so sometimes it's really neat to hear other therapists say, because I'm able to go to the school and talk to these kids, this is what happened today. Or we also have interns that work with us to learn, and sometimes hearing them talk about a program that was made possible through a grant and the exposure they have to that program and the services and what they've learned. So there's just so many ways that reward comes back.
Yeah. I'm curious, we had a guest from the Addiction Center of Broome County on a recent program, and I'm curious about if there's any networking among the various centers for counseling, whether it's working with addiction or marital issues. What is your relationship to other counselors in the area?
So we get referrals from them, and we refer to the Addiction Center of Broome County, as well as other agencies. We also try to work really hand in hand with care management and case management. So someone who might need a little more help in life navigating systems might have a care manager or case manager through a different agency. And sometimes they will recognize, like, hey, that what you're dealing with might be perfect for Samaritan, a counselor at Samaritan, so they'll reach out to us. And I just recently sent a letter out to some of our partnering agencies. And I try personally to stay very involved. I'm part of the Regional Trauma-Informed Care Network. I try to work closely with the Family Violence Prevention Council and, different committees that you can sit on and work with and just become affiliated with, so that your thumb's on the pulse of what other programs are out there.
Sure.
Programs change a lot, so grants change, funding changes, so it's really good to network with the other agencies in the area, know what they have to offer.
Sure. So you're getting some income from insurance, you're getting some from grants.
Yes.
What about, we received a solicitation letter recently asking for donations.
Sure.
So how does that fit into the program?
Yeah, we appreciate our gratuity or gratitude for our funders and donors is just so high. We do get a lot of donations. We do a yearly event. We do a bingo event in May, and that's very popular. It's a lot of fun, and we do get a lot of donations, just private donations through people that want to help the center. And it's kind of neat too. They added a feature on our website that you can click on if you want to make a donation and choose where your donation goes. So if you want it to go to the Client Support Fund that helps folks that are challenged maybe financially, you can choose specifically for your money to go for those clients. If you want it to be for kiddos and the school program we're doing, you could make that specific. Yeah. So we will honor that. So.
Great. So it could be done electronically.
Yes, yeah.
When I think about the looking for a specialist, you can't self-refer to a specialist. You have to go through your family doctor or whatever. But you can self-refer to the Samaritan Counseling Center. You don't have to be referred by your physician or your pastor or priest or rabbi.
Yes, you can absolutely just call us up or go on the website, stop in if you like, but you do not need to be referred.
Yeah. And so the process then is that you would fill out some paperwork, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, we have an intake packet, and that really is about a little bit of history, a little family history, just for us to kind of get to know where you're at and what you're seeking in counseling. And then there are some permissions, like for us to be able to call you on the phone and leave a message, things like that, a couple release forms. But we try to make it as painless as possible.
Yeah, it's as user-friendly as it can be.
Yes, yeah.
And there are certain hoops to jump through anytime you're looking for any sort of help, for mental health or for physical help as well. I'm also curious about continuing education for your therapists. I guess they are always being not retrained necessarily, but finding help for their own specialties.
Sure, yeah. And there's a requirement if you're a social worker to have so many, they call it continuing education units, to get CEUs. And so we actually support our therapists by offering money for them to be able to take trainings and to participate. And we look at getting them certified in things that they're really interested in getting certified in too. That's part of how the EMDR came about, is that was something our therapists were really interested in. And so Marion, the previous director, made that possible to have a training where she offered it to all the therapists there if they wanted to be trained in that. So we have folks that are specially certified in certain types of therapy.
Right. Well, this has been great. I've known about the Samaritan Counseling Center for a long time, and Marion Townsend had been on our program previously. And then after the move, I think we may have shown some pictures of the new building when that was taking place too. So it's good to get to know you and to hear about what's going on. Once again, the mission, now I found this piece of paper. The mission of the Samaritan Counseling Center is to empower the whole person using a spiritually sensitive approach to counseling, consultation, and education. So this isn't Bible counseling, it's not prayer counseling. These are professional counselors who have vast training, and you can find all the counselors on the website. Once again, the website is?
SamaritanCounseling.org.
And it's I went to it to find out more about what Jill's work was and to see what new things that I could find on the counseling websites, SamaritanCounselingCenter.org. Thank you very much
for being with us. Thank you so much for having me.
Our guest has been Jill Lloyd, the Executive Director of the Samaritan Counseling Center, offering compassion and confidentiality with each client and therapist working together to understand and resolve various issues. The issue this morning has been entering a new year with hope and healing and help. I'm Jeff Kellam, thanking you for being with us for the past year for the Encounter program, produced through the facilities of WBNG TV, with Tom, Dick, and Harry running the cameras. And our thanks to the Town Square media stations for carrying the audio portion of our program. If you're listening to us on the radio, you might want to know that we're on TV on WBNG on Sunday mornings at 5:30. I'm Jeff Kellam, Parish Associate at Union Presbyterian Church in Endicott, hoping that in the coming week, in the coming year, you'll be gentle with people and with yourself.